The lights of the studio reflected off the polished floor like soft golden ripples, shimmering beneath the hum of cameras booting up and audience chatter rising in waves. The room was more charged than usual, not chaotic, just expectant, a tension that seemed to dance between the rafters. Producers whispered into headsets, stage managers pointed toward marks on the stage, and audience members tugged at their clothes, straightening collars or smoothing hair as though preparing to meet royalty. That was the Margot Robbie effect. Even hours before the show taped, the energy shifted, tinged with excitement at seeing someone who was both Hollywood royalty and somehow still utterly human. Backstage, Margot stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the lapel of her soft rose-colored suit. It wasn't dramatic or glittering, it was quiet elegance, and that, ironically, made her glow more than any sequined gown ever could. A makeup artist brushed a final sweep of powder across her cheeks while a hairstylist tucked a loose curl neatly behind her ear. Margot thanked them both with that signature warmth, the kind that made even the most hardened crew members soften around the edges. "You're on in 30 seconds, a producer called, breathless, as though announcing the arrival of a queen. Margot smiled, exhaled, and followed him toward the stage entrance. As she stepped behind the curtain, the audience erupted in applause, loud and enthusiastic enough to drown out the music cue. The floor director gave her a reassuring nod, then pointed her forward like releasing a bird into the sky. Margot stepped into the spotlight, her smile bright and natural, her posture both graceful and relaxed. The applause grew louder. People stood, phones lifted, a few called her name. She lifted a hand in a small wave, acknowledging the love without letting it overwhelm her. The co-hosts rose to greet her, Sarah extending both arms for a hug, Sunny offering warm congratulations on her latest film, Alyssa smiling admiringly. Then there was Joy, leaning back in her chair, arms folded with a grin that wasn't quite a grin. More like a challenge, wrapped in amusement, with just enough bite to make the air prickle. Margot took her seat, crossing her legs elegantly. "It's so good to be here again," she began, and the audience cheered once more. "Your new film is blowing up everywhere," Sarah said. "People can't stop talking about it." Margot chuckled with a shy tilt of her head. "It's been surreal. We poured so much into it, so seeing people respond the way they have, it's emotional, honestly." Sunny nodded thoughtfully. "I think people appreciate the way you balance glamour with heart. It's refreshing." "Thank you," Margot said softly, genuinely touched. For the first few minutes, everything flowed effortlessly. Margot spoke about producing, about championing new voices in film, about creating stories that celebrated resilience and complexity. The audience was enthralled, leaning in, laughing at her anecdotes and murmuring at the more heartfelt moments. But Joy was waiting, watching. Her fingertips drummed against her mug with a rhythm that felt like a warning. "So Margot," Joy said suddenly, cutting off a gentle exchange between Margot and Alyssa. "Your movie is great and all, I've seen it, but people have been saying it glamorizes Hollywood. Makes it look like some sparkly wonderland when really it's full of problems." Margot straightened slightly, her calm smile wavering as she processed the abrupt pivot. "I think we can acknowledge the darker sides of the industry," she said carefully, "but not every story needs to center on them. There's space for inspiration too." Joy lifted her eyebrow. "Right, but doesn't it feel a little convenient to only show the pretty parts when you're benefiting from that world? Like, you're part of the machine, aren't you?" A murmur ran through the audience, a ripple of "oh no she didn't." The other host shifted uncomfortably. Sarah blinked twice. Sunny inhaled sharply. Alyssa looked from Joy to Margot, sensing the start of a storm. Margot wasn't easily ruffled, but this was unexpected. She took a slow breath. "I am part of the industry," she said, "but I also work hard to create opportunities for others who might not have them otherwise. It's important to use your position responsibly." Joy leaned in, smiling in a way that was anything but friendly. Sure, but don't you think that's just Hollywood PR? Saying all the right things without really doing anything? I mean, isn't it all just talk?" The audience gasped louder this time. Even the camera operators exchanged glances. Margot blinked slowly. Her face didn't fall, but it did tighten, a small, almost invisible shift from grace to steel. She sat up straighter, her shoulders drawing back, her eyes sharpening with quiet, deliberate resolve. "I'm not here to posture or spin narratives," she said softly, but with unmistakable firmness. "I've funded projects for new filmmakers because I believe in them. I've hired women and diverse storytellers because they deserve to be heard. I don't need a headline to justify that." Joy opened her mouth as if ready to hurl back something sharper, but for a moment, just a moment, Margot's calm, grounded sincerity stunned her into silence. And in that silence, the room held its breath. The air in the studio felt heavier as they returned from the commercial break, like something thick and invisible had settled on the set. Even the audience, usually re-energized after a break, buzzing with chatter, seemed quieter, leaning forward, sensing that the tension from earlier hadn't dissolved but instead deepened, simmering beneath the polite introductions that followed. Margot Robbie sat straighter in her chair than before, her perfect posture a shield, her expression still gracefully composed but missing the soft ease she'd carried at the start of the episode. Joy Behar, on the other hand, wore a smirk that could only be described as anticipatory. Like she had poked a sleeping lion and was waiting to see what happened next. Sarah attempted to pivot the conversation toward the lighter topics planned for the segment: Margot's recent charity work, her childhood in Australia, her surprising love of ice baths, but the questions floated awkwardly in the charged air. Margot answered kindly, each word measured, but nothing felt natural anymore. The tension pushed itself into every corner of the room, palpable even from the back rows of the audience. Then Joy saw an opening. "You know, Margot," she began, her voice deceptively casual as she folded her arms and leaned back, "some folks online have been saying your whole girl next door with a Hollywood heart of gold thing is a little manufactured." The kind of comment designed to slice while appearing harmless. Every head at the table snapped in Joy's direction. Sarah's eyes widened. Sunny blinked slowly, choosing caution. Alyssa looked as though she wanted to sink under the desk. Margot remained still. A muscle in her jaw twitched, so subtly only a few people would catch it, but enough to reveal she'd been pushed too far. "I'm sorry," Margot said, voice low but unmistakably steady. Joy shrugged. "Well, I'm just saying, you've built a brand. You're polished. You're always on, and some viewers think you dodge the tough stuff. That's what people are saying." "That's what you're saying," Margot corrected softly, her tone sharpened by a rare, icy edge. It wasn't loud. It wasn't theatrical. It was controlled, deliberate, and 10 times more powerful for it. A murmur rippled through the audience. The studio felt suddenly smaller, as though everyone had taken a collective step closer. Joy blinked, taken aback but too committed to her own momentum to retreat. "Hey, I'm just doing my job. Asking questions. Then maybe ask real ones," Margot replied. The entire table froze. Even the floor director, who normally signaled cues regardless of what chaos unfolded, stopped mid-motion, hands suspended in the air. Joy laughed, a short, uncomfortable burst. "Real ones, okay, then, let's be real. Your film paints Hollywood like it's some magical place. And you profit from that fantasy while avoiding any responsibility for." "Joy," Margot interrupted, her voice firmer now, "I didn't come here to be accused of pretending to be a good person. I'm here to talk about the work I care deeply about. If you have concerns about the film, we can discuss the themes, the choices, the storytelling. But attacking who I am, my integrity, that's not conversation, that's personal." Joy leaned in, eyes narrowing just enough to signal she had meant exactly what Margot accused her of. "Well, sometimes personal questions get to the truth. And sometimes they're designed to humiliate," Margot said, the words falling like stones into the center of the table. "You know that." A stunned hush fell over the audience. Even at-home viewers would later say they felt the shift through the screen, that eerie moment when something raw and unfiltered surfaced, making the show no longer a show but an arena. Sunny attempted to mediate, speaking gently. "Maybe we should," but Joy cut her off, eyes locked on Margot. "Look, sweetheart, if a tough question makes you uncomfortable, that's not my problem." Margot's eyes flashed, not with anger, but with an unmistakable boundary snapping into place. She inhaled slowly, her shoulders rising and falling once, like she was steadying the earth beneath her. "Don't call me sweetheart," she said softly, but the softness only made the statement ring louder. "Not to diminish me, not to belittle me, not to make me smaller so your point feels bigger." The audience erupted, not in applause, but in an electric gasp, the kind people make when something they've always wished someone would say finally gets said out loud. Joy's eyebrows shot up in surprise, but she recovered quickly. "Well, if you're going to be sensitive about everything, this isn't sensitivity," Margot replied, rising from her chair with calm, lethal elegance. "It's self-respect." The hosts looked up at her, stunned. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Sunny's eyes widened in disbelief. Even Joy looked rattled for a moment, the confidence in her posture faltering under Margot's unwavering gaze. Margot smoothed the front of her suit, her composure immaculate despite the fire burning beneath her words. I came here in good faith to share something meaningful. But I'm not staying somewhere I'm treated like a punchline. Then she stepped back from the table, her heels clicking softly against the stage floor, each step measured, dignified, unhurried. The cameras tracked her automatically as she headed toward the exit, the entire room too stunned to breathe.